Now, last week we stopped here where I highlighted in yellow, right? We are in the chapter 3. We're still in the very beginning of the book, where he explains to us the difficulties he had in the particular area he has arrived in the spiritual world. He just arrived to the city, to Astral City, and he's finding himself surprised with a lot of things, right?
We're in chapter 3 or 2?
Chapter 3.
Okay.
Let me show you here. Okay. Chapter 3, collective prayer.
I can't see your screen, Guilherme.
Oh, yes, because I haven't shared yet. I forgot.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. You will now. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, my fault. So the area highlighted is where we stopped. So I'll read that again, and then we can continue. Our head is scarcely finished when heavenly music, soft waves of sound, rising to higher spheres, floated into my room. Stopping here already, right? To have music, it means, hi Sandra, I just saw you. To have music means we have instruments, right? That's my first thought. To have a music, I need some instrument to play music. I can sing without instruments, but to have a music, I need instruments. And he also mentioned here that he was in his room. So when we talk about room, we talk about walls, ceiling, windows, and that means, or at least looks like a lot, like we have here. I am between 4 walls right now. So I like to bring that to our attention so people think about what kind of message. Yep. Hi, Ebony.
In addition, I think it's also telling us that music is therapeutic. Music is healing. You know, it's coming in through his room, and remember, he's still convalescing. I
loved your comment.
Yeah, wonderful.
And it is true. Only now the scientists start to consider it as a possibility. Hi, Denise.
He also say waves of sound. Does it mean that the sound is propagating the same way? Yes. By waves?
Yes. The same law applies here and there. We are in the very same universe. The laws, the universal laws, are exactly the same. We do not know every single law that exists. The laws that may apply in another planet could be different than the laws applied here. It does not mean that they do not exist. They are not used here. But the laws follow the same pattern, follow the same rules. Otherwise, we would live in a mess. Imagine if the law of physics changed from continent to continent. We would be crazy.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
All the same. Cool. So only now the scientific people start to identify that music, well, now, in the last 10 years, music can be used to treat people. And they are doing sometimes in the hospital. They have studies in universities. Sound can heal, music can heal. There are treatments under development that sounds are treating patients, not even music, sounds, treating through the level of vibration, specific level of vibration, treating some diseases. That wonderful melody went straight to my heart. Let me stop here again. Oh my God. He's telling me that when I lose my physical body, I still have a heart. Did you ever thought that you would have a heart on the other side? What is the function of the heart in our body, in our physical body? It is a pump, right? Get the fluid sent, received, pressurized, pump, sent, received. So that means that my physical body is exactly the same as my spiritual body, in a different matter, but it's exactly the same. Means that I do have a heart. If I do have a heart, my spiritual body also has needs like my physical body. I have fluid circulating through my spiritual body. Otherwise, I would not need a heart. Saying that, we are very keen to accept that our physical body is connected atom to my spiritual body. So I'm just putting dots together. That's all I'm doing here. I'm listening to what people say. I'm reading Kardec. I'm reading Andre Luiz, and using a bit of reason. Atom to atom, he said we have a heart. I have a heart here. I should have a heart over there, or I do have a heart over there. So we need to expand the way we see things. I looked to my attendant for some explanation, and he said, this is the eventide service of Astral City. Every department of this colony of service dedicated to Christ is attuned with the prayers of the government house. Prayers. So we have prayers over there. And he will explain a lot what we can do with the prayers in the future. Now, we stay here in peace. I will return as soon as the service is over. A lot of people think, oh, he passed away. He was suffering so much here, but now he will rest. Let's hope not. Let's hope the person when arrives on the other side don't have to rest, because you see, they have a lot of things to do. They have an organization of life on the other side. Why we want to be lazy to rest on the other side if we cannot do that here? Right? We need to think a little bit. As he prepared to leave, I was suddenly filled with anxiety. Oh dear. I'm a very anxious person. So it means that when I'm going on the other side, I will have anxiety as well. That's not very good for me. May I go with you? I plead. You are still weak, he explained. But if you feel like you can do it, you can. When we are weak here on earth, we are weak when we used our physical body unwisely, when we are tired, when we worked so hard that day, extra hours, when we consume energy. We are tired, our physical body is tired when we consume energy. Keep that in mind, and in the future I'll talk a little bit about that. That music had filled me with renewed energies, yet I was barely able to rise from my bed. So here we go, Ebony. Music and energy. That combination improved his strength. We know already that everything is energy, proved by science. So even the sound, the music creates energy. Aided by my attendant with faltering steps, I reached the enormous hall where a great assembly was praying in deep, silent concentration. Well, he had a room. Now he's describing a building. It seems like too much to me to believe that on the spiritual world, we have a body, we have a room, we have a building. So this is a shock initially to Andre Luiz, learning himself what is the spiritual world. But imagine for us, because many of us did not have any clue about what the spiritual world, right? The delicate garlands and flowers which hung from the brilliant lead dome seemed from a symbol of higher spirituality. Well, have you ever thought that you would be able to find flowers in the spiritual world? A lot of people will say, oh, well, the spirit thought about having a flower and the flower just pop up in front of him. I think that's pretty much the way we would like to do things. I don't like to work. I don't like to do anything really. It's unnatural to work. So I would prefer only to think and to have a bag full of money, only to think, have flowers, only to think, have a building, only to think and have anything you think, anything you like. But if we go step by step of the book, I hope that by the end, you will think a little bit different. Talking about flowers, what do we need to have a flower?
Soil.
Oh dear.
Sun.
Oh dear. We have a problem now. We are finding things on the spirit world that is hard to process, because I've been told since I was little that I would go to heaven, and in heaven I would have wings because I'll be an angel. And now it's conflicting with what one spirit is bringing to us through Francisco Xavier. I could hardly contain my feelings of overwhelming surprise. No one seemed to notice my presence. They all looked as if they were waiting for something. I had to work to hold back all of the questions forming in my mind. And I hope you do have questions as well, because I'm pretty sure that even to those that are familiar with this book, who read this book before, the way I'm trying to present is a bit different. Hello.
I'll say to you that you're totally crazy. I'll tell you that where I am in the spiritual world, by the way, I'm being the devil's advocate. So where I am as a discarnate in the spiritual world, I am not seeing any of those things. I'm not seeing any pretty flowers. I'm not in any pretty lit room. Nobody's encouraging me. I'm not hearing any music. Nobody's encouraging prayer. What is that? So I am in the spiritual realm. And you are on the earth realm reading some book, and I can tell you that what you're reading isn't true. What do you say to that, Guilherme?
First thing I would say, I'm just reading what has been written by one spirit through one of the biggest mediums we know on earth. If I don't believe in what Francisco Cândido Xavier brought to us via his mediumship, I'm questioning the whole Spiritism itself. That would be my first answer. My second answer is, perhaps where you are, you may not have anything like that. That's a massive possibility. But that is the result of your choice. I haven't chosen that. Yes, you did, with your actions, with your behavior, with what you did. And everything we are creates a vibration. We are attracted to a place where the vibration matches with our vibration. we have to remember that even Andre Luiz, when he passed away, he could not see anything like that. It was entirely the opposite. He was describing a place of suffering, darkness, monsters, really. Only after he changed, after a period of time, and that time can be a length period of time, as we know through the mediumship meetings, he was able to, he started to know things like that. So he started telling us that he was in a dark place, and now he's describing a different place after he started to change. So yes, you may don't know anything like that because you did not allow yourself to have access to that. To have access to that kind of thing, you need to move away from some habits, at least. Did you like my answer?
Perfect.
I could notice in the background an intensely bright light reflected on a giant screen. Oh dear. Oh dear. It's the first time he mentions, but it's not the only one, but it's the first time he mentions a screen, a projection, a giant screen. Today we have giant screens in our own home. We can buy flat screen TVs that are like 100 inches already, even larger than that. But we have cinemas with very large screens. We have projections. So it is the first time he mentioned about projections, at least. And bear in mind that this book was written 70 years ago or something like that. And we did not have those facilities at that time. So he's describing something here that at least me, I only had contact in the recent past, not like 70 years ago. By some process of advanced television, a marvelous temple appeared on the screen on a moment later. Well, in my home country, when this book was written, not many people could afford to have a TV at home. Actually, very little people at the time. It was hard already to have a radio. A TV, not a chance. And he is describing here that he had something like a TV already over there with a giant screen. Something that, as far as I know, he only came in the last 10, 15 years. In it was the image of a venerable old man dressed in white, sitting in prayer. Oh dear. The spirit was wearing a white cloth to start with. He was sitting. To sit, you need to sit somewhere. He was sitting in a chair, at least, right? And he was praying. So we should embrace that habit of prayer, because if they do over there, must be good. Around his head shone a halo of brilliant light. Slightly below him, 72 figures accompanied him in silent prayer. I was surprised to see that Clarence was among them. I was unable to restrain my curiosity. I pulled at my attendant's arm, and he responded, whispering so softly, his words resembled a murmuring of a light breeze. Keep quiet. All the residences and institutions of the Astral City are praying with the governor through long-distance projection. Ooh. long distance projection of sound and light. How can we do a long distance projection of sound and light? We need some instruments to do so. And I will stay here, otherwise I will repeat a lot of the same thing in the short period of time, but a little bit further, I'll be able to explain a bit more of that.
Sorry, Guilherme, he also said as a governor, so there's like a hierarchy.
Yep. The governor is, it will be described later on, but is the person that has more working hours in the community. I don't remember from the top of my head how many hours, but every time you ascend to a organizational position is directly related to the amount of work you dedicated for the community. There is a massive structure on everything we see, not only with Andre Luiz, not only on this particular book, but organization is a must everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When they call governor, it's not the same type of governor we have, right? It's a governor to guide us, to govern our attitudes at least. There is a different tone of that word in the spiritual world, but yes, there is a hierarchic structure. Thanks for that. I forgot to say that. Thank you. Let us praise the invisible heart of heaven. He had scarcely finished speaking when the 72 figures began singing. Now they are singing. So that's why I mentioned a difference between music and singing. A sweet and exquisitely beautiful hymn. I looked at Clarence. His countenance seemed to shine with an intense high light. The celestial voices rose in melodious cadence in the most beautiful hymn of attitude. Let me read this first item here because I think it's interesting. In the Spiritist terminology, fluid and fluids designate a substance of magnetic nature that can be manipulated by both spiritual beings and men on earth. This is a topic that, if you do have an opportunity, is interesting to study, because through the understanding of fluids, we will understand a lot about mediumship, how it works, how a lot of phenomena, spiritist phenomena processes. Mysterious vibrations of peace and joy floated in the atmosphere. And as the silvery note dies away, a wonderful heart, blue with golden rays, become visible above us in the same distance. Soft music began, seeming to arise perhaps from distant spheres, and suddenly we were showered with beautiful flowers. Flowers again. Although I could easily see them, I could not grasp those tiny flowers with my hands. So the spirit has a hand. On touching our foreheads, they melted away. And at one touch of the fluidical petals, I felt an extraordinary surge of energy, as if some smoothing balm had been applied to my heart. He is describing here something that from time to time we also felt in some meetings. We can feel when we are praying. So it's a kind of something coming from high above us, coming to us to bring us peace. As soon as the impressive service was over, I returned to the chamber, tenderly aided by my assistant. I was no longer the ailing patient of a few hours before. So he started to feel the difference between before and after the first encounter with the prayer he had in Astral City. The first collective prayer I had attended to the Astral City had worked a radical change in me. Unexpected peace filled my soul for the first time in many years of suffering. And my heart, so long empty, was once filled again with hope. That comes to help me with the question you did, Ebony, you see? So through the process, the learning process, through the acceptance of change, and through the utilization of prayer, he was able to change few things, even to himself. So I will jump now to the chapter 4, if you don't mind. As I said, if you want to jump in and make any comment, talk about anything, please feel free to do so, right? I awoke the following day after a deep, refreshing sleep. So that means when we die, we also have a need to sleep. And bear in mind that what I'm talking here is the sphere that's very close to where we are. I'm not talking about high sphere, because a lot of people will say, well, but the high spirits. I'm not talking about high spirits. I'm not talking about high sphere. I'm talking about a place that probably most of us, if not all of us, will end up with. Because if we were high spirits, we wouldn't be here today. We would be elsewhere. So the goal of this kind of study is to prepare ourselves to identify ourselves and the environment on the other side when we passed away. So everything I'm talking here is about something that's close to us, not something that's very high, very far away from us, at least for me. Oh, here we go. A comforting light poured through my window, bathing everything in the room with radiance and filling my heart with hope. Have you ever thought about windows in the spiritual world? Why do we have walls? Why do we have windows? I believe if we do have that, it's to protect us from the elements. So he is describing to us that on the spiritual world, actually he did more than once, but he's describing that there are also elements on the other side. And when he said the radiance coming through my room means the light from what? What's the big yellow ball that's close to Earth? I think it's called sun. So the same light that warms up us here, we do the same over there. I felt like a new man, filled with renewed energy and the joy of living. Only one thing clouded my soul. I longed for my home and for my family so far away. Oh dear. When we leave our loved ones behind, how we will see that? We will miss them deeply, right? Of course we will. And that's very normal, understandable. But we have to be prepared to understand that life is a continuous process. And when we die, when they pass away, those that were left behind will be there for a period of time. And eventually, if everything works well, we'll be together again on the other side. Why I'm saying that? Because we see people getting desperate when things like that happen. Those that remains on Earth and those that arrive on the other side. So we need to start to see death with more naturality. I'm not saying I'm on rush to die. That's not the idea. But when it happens, it happens. You know, I will miss my son, my daughter, my wife, the same way that I miss my parents. Some of my parents, they are my relatives. Sorry, my parents are alive. My relatives, they are already in the spiritual world. Yes, I miss them. But I also know that I'll be with them eventually. So we need to start to see death with a different eyes. Numerous questions troubled my mind, but my feeling of relief was so great that it calmed my spirit and kept me from further contemplation. I wanted to get up and enjoy the beauty of my surroundings, but I could not. I realized that without the magnetic cooperation of my attendant, I would not be able to leave my bed. So it's not only because he wanted to go that he was in condition to go. He started to realize that he was only able to walk, to move away in the presence of someone else. So someone else was giving him the support he required to be able to do it. It's not just because I want, because I think that I'm allowed to do it. Hi, Sandra.
Hi. I'm not sure what the meaning when he said, I realized that without the magnetic cooperation, I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm. Let me try to explain in a different way. When we go to a Spiritist center, we go over there, we watch, we are there for a lecture, but in reality, we are there for the healing most of the time. We want to have the healing, right? What is happening at that time is the magnetic transfusion. And do we need to have this magnetic transfusion only when we are in that time of healing? No. Sometimes we felt so great when we are closer to some people because we like them, because they have good energy. So that kind of transfusion of energy is what he's referring to. Bear in mind that if you get closer to people that have bad energy, they also drain our energy, right? So it's easy to compare like that and to make sense of what he's trying to say.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. I had scarcely gotten over the many experiences when the door opened and Clarence entered. Now we have a door. I thought every spirit had no doors. They could go everywhere, do everything. So let me stop here for a moment, just to try to make some sense in what I just said. I cannot myself enter in a room unless I open a door. That's true, I can't. If I try, I'll hurt myself. But why? Because I am in this type of matter. The door is the equivalent type of matter that my physical body will interact. When we die, we have a need of our spiritual body to interact in the spiritual world. So the same phenomena, to a certain extent, happens when one spirit tries to go through a wall. He won't. He needs to open a door to do it. Because his matter is prepared to that type of environment. One spirit don't need to open the door where we are, because they are in a different type of matter. I think I'll stop here, otherwise I'll give so much information and I'll make things more complicated than help. But as we move on through the book, I will try to feed more information. unless if you want to ask anything, please feel free to do it. Accompanied by a friendly stranger, they greeted me cordially, wishing me peace. My rescuer from lower zone asked me about my general health, and my attendant quickly came to inform him. He mentioned that he was in the lower zone, right? The area that he was before he was rescued. And it is funny when someone asking about my health, I thought I had nothing left. So to make it easy to understand, when we lose our physical body, my spirit will have the reflex of my physical body. If I had, for example, a cancer, when I arrive over there, I will have that in my spiritual body. It still need to be treated. The time that will take to heal is another thing. But my spiritual body, in the great majority of cases, will arrive on the other side with the same I had here. I do not change just because I die. I don't change who I am because I die. I did everything wrong when I was here. I will do the same on the other side. I have urges to drink a lot. I'll have the same urges on the other side. Smoke, eat, drink, whatever. I'll have exactly the same. Clarence smiled and introduced his companion, Brother Henry de Luna, of the medical staff of the spiritual colony. Now we have doctors in the spiritual world. So then we start to make sense of someone asking about my health, because he brought a doctor to evaluate my condition. If a doctor is required, means that my spiritual body has some or have some diseases, or at least needs some attention from a doctor. That comes to corroborate in what I said. When I arrive on the other side, I still have what I had on the end. The staff of the spiritual colony. Brother Henry was dressed in a white and his face radiated benevolence. He examined me at length, then he smiled and spoke. It is a pity that you've come here by the way of suicide. This part of the book is very interesting because that will show us how we do things without knowing it. So let's go with Andre Luiz before I start talking too much. Clarence remained calm, but I felt an urge of revolt within me. Suicide. I remembered the accusation of those perverse beings in the lower zones. If you remember in the beginning of the book, he said a lot, those spirits that were at that location were calling him suicidal all the time, right?
I think Denise made a question regarding this part of the book introduction.
Denise, can you tell us what is the question, Denise? Because I'm not reading the chat really.
No. She said, I think the previous meeting,
The first one.
how they could see or say that was a suicide.
Oh yes, that's true. Oh, I forgot that question.
Now the answer is coming.
Thank you, Elsa.
And I forgot that question. And by the way, I thought about your question deeply. It's a shame that I forgot that. Well, the first thing that came to my mind is that through all the books, we have the information that when we commit suicide, we go to a place, sometimes they call suicidal area, or doesn't matter the name, right? So if he end up in that area, chances are that he was not the only one in that same type of vibration, or that had committed the same mistakes in that area. Because remember, we create vibration. We resonate with the vibration of an area. So if I went to that place, chances are I was not the only one. So the other ones around me, they had the same situation as I had. So give and take, if I know that in that neighborhood, everyone that commits suicide, I'm fairly confident to say that everyone there is suicidal. So that was the first thing that came to my mind, right? And another thing that I also thought is that sometimes, depending on the possibility the spirit may have, and I don't believe all of them in the area would have, they would be able to interpretate through the energy of your body, through the different colors of your body, what kind of thing you probably did to yourself. So it could be one way to identify what you did. Could be, I'm not saying,
Yeah.
but that was the two things that I thought. Because the answer that I gave you last time, I was not very happy with the answer I gave, but now I'm a bit happier.
Thank you there, Mel.
Thank you. Even though I was grateful to my benefactors, I couldn't accept this accusation. Let me talk about those lower zones here. Lower zones are the shadowy regions where excessively self-centered souls, or those with a guilty-ridden conscience, find themselves after death. Just to give an idea, we call that umbral with different names. I believe you are mistaken, I said. Distressed. My departure from the world had other causes. I fought over 40 days trying to overcome death. I suffered through 2 serious operations because of intestinal occlusion. Quite so. The doctor continued, calm and perfectly composed, but the occlusion was the result of very serious causes. Perhaps you haven't thought it over enough. The spirit body presents within a complete history of the actions practiced on earth. That hurts, right? That hurts because make me think that things that I'm doing right now to myself may qualify me as suicidal too. So things I do to my body on earth will reflect on my spiritual body on the spiritual realm. So, and that's nice for me. If I don't do enough jinn, I will be responsible for it. If I don't eat healthy enough, I may be also responsible for it. If I eat too much sugar like I do, oh dear, I may be in trouble. So that kind of thing makes us think that I need to revisit some of my choices. Linear
Vegan.
No, that's too harsh for me. I like to eat some vegan. But,
also for me.
all the time.
But I do love pizza, chocolate, coffee, everything that.
I know.
Oh my.
But the thing is, we can eat everything with balance. The excess is the problem, right? Leaning over me, he went on pointing to different parts of my body. I love that part. There's a lot of spiritists that still believe that when we die, we are a gas balloon, that we can do everything by thought. But he, Andre Luiz, says to us that the doctor, when to examine him, was pointing to different parts of his body. So there's no argue about it. Spirits have a body, period. And there are studies about perispirits that explain that very well. But spirits have a body. And the interesting thing is, we are not a gas balloon, because I have different parts of my body. I may have limbs, head, mouth, things like that. He mentioned already, but it's always good to remember. Let's look to the intestinal zone. He said the occlusion was due to a cancerous element, which in turn arose from the indiscretion of yours, in which you contracted syphilis. So everything that the doctor was able to see on his spiritual body was a direct consequence of what he did. The disease might not have assumed such a grave characteristics had your mental attitudes been firmly based on the principles of moderation and brotherly love. Your mental attitude, right, can have a massive impact on your diseases, your physical diseases. So if for any reason, any of us, we have cancer, for example, if we start to think that we'll die already in a couple of days, we are not helping. We are making things worse. And if you do keep a good mental health, chances are that, yes, we will need treatment, but the treatment will suffice and you can carry on. So mental health is important everywhere. Instead, you choose a dark, exasperating way of life, which attracted destructive vibration. Well, we know that our mental health helps us when we need, right? But now we know that we attract destructive vibrations, at least, but not less, with the way we are, with what we decide to do. So we need to really think about what we're doing to ourselves from those around you. Okay, so from those around you is important to an extent that if we decide to go to a place that's not very good for us, because we know everything we'll find in this particular place will not help us physically or spiritually. You never imagined that angers attract negative forces, did you? Remember, last time we were not happy with someone. We were not happy with something someone did to us. We did a little swear. At that moment, we were very upset. What we are doing? At that moment, we change our energy, we change our vibration, and we attract spirits that are within the range of vibration. So sometimes a 5 minutes moment of anger in our home is enough to invite people that are staying in our home for hours. So we need to be vigilant with what we say, how we act, how we think. And that's very difficult. That's very difficult. but energy attracts energy. If we vibrate in that level, be assured that your companions will be vibrating in that level. Your lack of self-control and your toughlessness in dealing with others whom you so often unthinkingly offended frequently left you under the influence of sick and inferior beings. Oh. Everyone from time to time managed to, how can I say that? To criticize someone, we managed to obsess someone. When we do that, look what he's saying. Inferior beings coming closer to me and make me ill. What are those inferior beings? I would refrain to them as spirits, okay? These circumstances greatly aggravated your physical state. So in the moment that we are sick, we have a disease, we are in the hospital, for example, if we do not accept what's going on, if we are doing blasphemies all the time, for example, and things like that, we are not helping ourselves. We need to think in a different way. After a long pause in which he went on examining me attentively, he continued. Have you observed, my friend, that your liver was damaged through your action? That translation here, right? We use what is in the book, but the translation, as I think was here, the word used in Portuguese was auscultated. When you get a stethoscope and you put on your body. So changing the word, changing the meaning. When we are auscultated means a spirit need an instrument, maybe not exactly like ours, but need one instrument to listen to our internal sounds, to our internal organs, right? I know that because I'm using this part of the book to another thing, but that got my attention straight away because I knew the book in Portuguese, and when I saw the book in English, so well, where's this word? Doesn't reflect what he's trying to say here, right? So the doctor who went to visit Andre Luiz was making assumptions, pointing for his physical parts, and then he come with an instrument to listen more in details to his body, to his spiritual body. Auscultated was the word. That your kidneys were also mistreated in your reckless disregard for the divine gift of physical existence. So now we have kidneys too. We had early today heart, we found body parts, and now we found kidneys. Do you remember that game when we had when we were young, that we used to remove parts of the toy? Here we go. We are doing the same here. We are learning that we have parts and parts. I felt deeply disappointed, but the doctor, seemingly unaware of my anguish, continued to clarify. The bodily organs possess incalculable reserves in accordance with the Lord's designs. You, my friend, evaded many excellent opportunities and wasted the precious blessing of physical existence. The long-term assignment which you had been given by those of greater spiritual accomplishment was reduced to half-earthed attempts at work which you never completed. Oh dear. What I'm doing to myself here on earth now. Because he's telling Andre Luiz, and I'm thinking like, if Andre Luiz, that is way more evolved than I am, had all this trouble, imagine me when the times come. But He's saying that Andre Luiz got a massive possibility from heavens to his existence, to his physical existence. And he did just part of it. So, in other words, if I understood it right, he was not meant to die at that time. His actions, his choices, the way he saw life reduced the amount of time on earth that was planned to his existence, to that existence at least. So why I'm stopping here? Because we need to make an inner evaluation about what we are doing to ourselves. So I will stop here. Next week, well, 2 weeks time, we're going to be talking about the same thing again. And before I let you go, let me share with you something else, because it's quite interesting too. Let me take it here.